Hey, you. Welcome back to the Wholesome Way podcast. You are tuning in to the very first solo episode of season one, Finding the Real You. I really wanted to open up and share something that I've been focusing on recently and thinking about a lot. And it's my hope, as always, that you might find something both fascinating and practical to your life right now. I've been thinking a lot about the relationship between our true self and challenge. And when I say true self, I'm referring to your real identity, who you are, and who you will become. And challenge involves putting yourself, I think, in a situation or experience outside of your comfort zone. Ooh, comfort zone. Scary word, I know. But let me put you at ease. I want to start off by telling you a story. I went to America recently on a work trip and found myself in a museum for 4 hours. Probably the longest time I've spent in a museum. And I am one person to go to a museum. I love them. But 4 hours, I was in awe. This museum was all centered around a great man called Cassius. Now, Cassius, when he was a boy, about 12, he had his bike stolen and he decided, I need to protect myself. I need to protect my things. I'm going to take up boxing. So he trained and he trained for years and years and years and became a really, really amazing boxer. And actually went onto the world stage at the Olympics and won gold in boxing at just 18 years. With his speed and his confidence and charisma, he quickly rose through the professional ranks and became heavyweight champion of the world in 1964. Shortly after, Cassius announced his conversion to Islam and changed his name. A decision at that time in the 60s that sparked national controversy because he was living in America. And just a few years later, in 1967, after continuing to box and to put himself in the ring, he refused to be drafted into the Vietnam War on religious and moral grounds. And as a result, he was sadly stripped of his heavyweight title and banned from boxing during the prime of his career and faced a 5-year prison sentence. Now imagine that. Though he avoided jail, he was exiled from the sport, from boxing, the thing that he loved most, and he lost precious years of competition. But despite the backlash, he held firm in his convictions and true to himself, continued to boxing, continued training, blocked out all the hate and all the negative energy that he was receiving from the world. And after a 3-year ban, he returned to the ring to reclaim his legacy and became a symbol ultimately of resilience and purpose far beyond boxing. He left behind a legacy as one of the most influential and iconic figures in sports and social activism. This man is Muhammad Ali, and he's become a huge inspiration recently to my life, especially around the context of challenge. Now, this is quite an extreme example of challenges that come up in your life, but Muhammad Ali is a perfect example of how challenges, whether they are thrown in our face or whether we put ourselves purposely through them, we can achieve greatness. Muhammad Ali famously said, "Be great and do great things." And how we do great things, I think, are achieved and manifested through seeking the challenge. I recently heard this gentleman speaking on another podcast that I like. His name is Michael B. Beckwith. He's got a podcast about understanding the mind. And he said, we weren't put on this earth to live a challenge-free life. We're here to learn how to navigate and transcend challenges to become the next version and vision of ourselves. And it really rang true for me in so many ways. Think about this for a second. How can you possibly gain new knowledge or wisdom know what you enjoy doing or what you are capable of if you stay in the cycle of your comfort zone challenge free. So, what is a challenge? And what do I mean by challenge? A challenge is an adverse or difficult situation or experience to be overcome. And there are two types of challenges: the ones that you didn't see coming, like being made redundant from your job, losing your phone, or breaking your arm. Those are usually challenges that come out of nowhere. And then there are the ones where you purposely push yourself out of your comfort zone, like running the New York Marathon, giving a best man speech, or moving to a foreign country. Now, here's the thing. I think most of us get bogged down in motions of the first type, the ones that come unexpectedly, and don't do enough of the second type, the ones that we purposely push ourselves out of our comfort zone to achieve greatness. And ultimately, I believe, become the next version of ourselves. Quite often we label the curveballs of life with negative words like problem, issue, concern. Something to complain about, to wallow in with self-pity. But perspective is everything. And I've truly come to believe that it's better to see these problems in a more positive and constructive light, whether we put ourselves through these challenges or whether they are thrown at us out of nowhere. Every challenge is a chance for growth and success, whether you've lost your job or you're running a marathon. These are both challenges to be overcome, puzzles to solve. And there's always a new and improved version of you waiting on the other side. I have a mantra that sticks in my head every time something difficult comes up for me in my life. It makes me smile just because it was also a funny memory. I remember my time as an Army cadet section leader back in high school, where at one point I was responsible for 10, 15-year-old boys as a 16-year-old, so only 1 year older. And in fact, I was young for my year, so I was actually only a few months older than them. And I was leading them through an army range in the middle of New South Wales in Australia, out in the bush, practicing our recently learned basic survival skills. We found ourselves one night huddled together like sardines, lying on a thin ground mat and a huge sheet of camouflaged canvas to protect us from the elements. And as it started to rain and the wind picked up, of course, some of the boys started to groan in despair. And I recall one of the boys named Tom, the class clown of the group, but in a good way, because he called out in a joking way during this terrible night, "It's just character building, gents." And even though he was kind of hysterically joking, everyone laughed, including me. And we chatted while the wind and rain howled until we fell asleep from exhaustion and tears of laughter in the early hours of the morning. And I've never forgotten that line. And as I said, it's become a bit of a catchy mantra and life philosophy for me. To see each difficult situation as a challenge that, once beaten, will build upon a stronger version of me. So thanks, Tom. Now, the second type of challenge, that's the one where we purposely push ourselves outside of our comfort zone. And I think that's where life starts to get really interesting. When was the last time you left your comfort zone? Think about it. Did something change in you afterwards? I can bet that it certainly did. And I think for many of us, the comfort zone can be defined as this little box of boundaries that have been set by both ourselves and those who influence us, right up until we become an adult, around 18 to 23 years old. Our family, our friends, our school teachers, or even our favorite heroes in the movies and books that we love. This little box determines what we can do, what's easy, what feels good, and anything outside of it is impossible, too hard, or foolish to pursue. And it's important to think about and reflect upon how your comfort zone has been built, the characteristics of it, who influenced how that your comfort zone was created. Because this will allow you to make a plan and to overcome and change and break out of that comfort zone. If you don't know what it's made of, how can you get through it? So you might be thinking now, okay, yes, I have a comfort zone, but I'm happy in my comfort zone. Why should I leave? Well, I've got some answers to that from experience, especially in the past 2 years where I've truly been out of my comfort zone more than ever. So there are three things why I think we should challenge ourselves. The first is resilience. We've all heard the expression, no pain, no gain. And if you're a gym junkie or a runner, I think we can all attest to that. Because ultimately, a lot of us have been able to lift more or run further. And the first time you start running, you are very sore. Or the first time you start lifting, you are very sore because you're using muscles that you've never used before. Now, when we are put under stress, it's a known fact that new neural pathways are cemented and muscle memory is established. The body makes a new path to remembering how to do that again. And ultimately, you see that same thing again in a new light, whether it be lifting 50 kilos more on the bench press or running another 3 kilometers, getting closer to your half marathon distance. Our brain and our body makes a new pathway to remembering how to do that again. And I can give you a concrete example of how challenging yourself builds resilience. My time at school as an Australian Army cadet, I went through that program for 2 years from the age of 15 to 17. And I can tell you, my time at cadets, I cherish them a lot because they made me into who I am today. A lot of my characteristics and my traits come from the challenges and the good times that happened on those camps. I can remember one night hiking 16 kilometers in the dark and the rain with half of my body weight worth in a pack on my back and thinking, this absolutely sucks. And my feet are sore. I'm tired. I'm literally falling asleep while walking. I don't know if you've experienced that before. It's not a nice feeling, but you have to keep going because there's someone behind you and there's a cadet of senior rank making sure that you keep going. So you have to. And then being woken up at 1 a.m. to do sentry duty throughout the night, already tired from hiking throughout the whole day and going through physically exerting survival activities and navigation through thick bush in the Australian outback. And now that I've done that, especially at an early age, I've had those neural pathways cemented very early on and over multiple experiences. And now I can hike for hours and not be tired or thirsty or hungry because nothing can be as bad as those hikes and that late night sentry duty, watching for a fictitious enemy that might come out of the dark throughout my high school years. Another example is intermittent fasting. So I recently did a 72-hour fast. No food, just water, coffee, black coffee that is, so no calories, and electrolytes. And previously to that, I had been intermittently fasting for at least the better half of 2 years, twice, 3 times a week. So not having lunch until midday, about 16 hours. And that was tough to start, obviously, because your body's been wired into eating breakfast basically as soon as you wake up, and only having a black coffee between the hours of 6, 7 o'clock when you wake up to 12 is pretty tough. But once I got through it, it became natural. And so when I decided to do this 72-hour fast, I felt no pang of hunger in 24 hours. Absolutely nothing. I saw food in front of me, my partner eating at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but I felt no hunger. And so the fact that I had started intermittently fasting and built that resilience leading up to this bigger challenge had made it that much easier. No pain, no gain. And by the way, I felt amazing after that 72-hour fast. I felt completely detoxified and found mental clarity. Maybe try intermittently fasting before you start a big fast like that. There is so much evidence and science behind fasting and the benefits it can bring. So definitely look into that. Number 2, why should you challenge yourself? Opportunity. It's definitely easy to pick a challenge that's centered around your interests. So your hobbies, your desires, your dreams, what you want to do, what you like doing. Find a challenge around that. It'll make it a lot easier. And what will happen is you'll put yourself into a new area of life outside of your current cycle, and you'll meet like-minded people because those people obviously have the same interest as you do and are choosing to challenge themselves. And so it's a great way to make friends and new connections. You never know who you might meet. And as they say, it's who you know, not what you know. You'll also learn life lessons from older, more experienced people who have gone through potentially multiple challenges. So maybe you might meet someone doing stand-up comedy. Maybe that's a challenge. Maybe you love telling jokes, but you want to take it to the next level and you decide to sign up to an open mic night. You never know who you might meet. You never know the opportunities you might get. You might get an opportunity to get a few gigs. So challenging yourself can put you outside of your usual comfort zone, outside of your current reality and lifestyle to meet new connections, people that are going to bring you up and not bring you down. That's the key. I'll give you an example from my life. I, 2 years ago, moved with my partner to London without a job, scared as hell because I'd always played it safe, not quitting until I had landed the next role throughout the interview process, which is really tough. I ended up landing my dream job in London, based in the UK, working remotely, helping European customers succeed in the world of law enforcement. I've always loved crime shows, so I was ecstatic when this opportunity came through. And I even got to use my French fluency, mon français, to speak to French customers, all at the same time being paid a very high salary for London. I could not have done that easily from living in Australia in my cycle, in my lifestyle that I was in my comfort zone. And the third last benefit that you can get from challenging yourself is self-discovery. Putting ourselves out of our comfort zone allows us to learn things that we never knew about ourselves, traits, characteristics, and interests. You learn how far your body can move before giving up in an Ironman or a surfing competition. How many awkward silences you can get before breaking, standing in front of people telling jokes. We start to break our cycle of habits in challenging ourselves and changing our lifestyle, doing things that we've never done before that are keeping you, and we break that cycle that's keeping us anchored and preventing us from leveling up, becoming the next version of ourselves, gaining through temporary pain. Always keep moving and taking risks. Just as you would in playing a video game, you're not going to beat the level by taking the same approach to winning the boss fight each time. You're going to try a different way, a different tactic, maybe something more difficult than before. To really find the next version of ourselves, our true self, and level up, we need to break that cycle of getting up, catching the train, getting to work, catching the train back home, having dinner, watching Netflix, and going to bed. Oh yeah, and throw in some doom scrolling there as well. Break that cycle through seeking the challenge. Now, you might be saying, okay, all well and good, that's great. Where do I start? I've got a simple 3-step process here that I've come up with to start seeking the challenge in life. Let's do this. So number 1, write down your hobbies, your interests, your desires, your dreams. Put it all down on paper. Just let it flow. Then do a search for paid, yes, something that costs money, a paid event on Eventbrite, Meetup. Those are 2 apps that I use. Or even just Google it. Just Google stand-up comedy events. Easy. Something that's related to your hobby, your interests, your dreams, your desire. An event. Check your calendar, book it, and go along by yourself. Now, I emphasize going by yourself here because you will ultimately act differently than if you went along with a friend or a family member, because you're probably going to seek more validation from them, and you might not end up being yourself. Because ultimately, this idea, this experience of seeking a challenge is about you. It's about finding out, discovering who you are, what you're capable of, and what the next version of yourself is going to be. And also finding like-minded people who are in the same boat as you. If you have a friend or a family member that's in the same boat as you are in this context, then by all means, go ahead, go with them. But I can tell you now, going by yourself, you will learn a lot quicker about who you are and who you want to become. I recently did the 3 Peaks Challenge in the United Kingdom, which involves climbing the 3 tallest peaks across Scotland, England, and Wales. And it was one of the hardest things I have done. Even just getting there was a challenge in itself. When I told my friends and some of my family members that I was doing this hike, they all said in a joking way, "Oh, you've got to be crazy to do that. You definitely have my tick of approval for crazy." But it's something that I was genuinely interested in and wanted to see if I could do this challenge to climb all 3 peaks in under 24 hours. I kept thinking to myself, my mantra, it's just character building. And nothing can be as worse as those long hikes through the night during cadet camp. Before I tell you about my experience on the 3 Peaks Challenge, I wanted to put it in the context of this 3-step process that I mentioned earlier, where to start throwing yourself into the challenge. So number 1, write down your hobbies, interests, desires, and dreams. The reason why I say that first is because a difficult situation or challenging activity that you're going to engage in is going to be a lot easier to complete if you like that activity or aspects of that activity to some degree. In my example, I've known I've always loved hiking and long walks from my days in high school on the cadet camps to finding a nice scenic walk in the bush or on the coast with my fiance back home in Sydney along the Spit to Manly walk, or hiking in the Bantry Bay National Park, to finding hikes, mountains and cliffs to climb along the Wild Atlantic Way in Ireland during our travels. So that's number 1, make it easy. Number 2, find a paid event that's related to your hobby or interest. And the reason I say paid is because you are much more likely to go to that event, put yourself out there if you pay for something. There's value attached to it. You're more motivated to go because you'll lose money if you don't. So that automatically convinces you to go along. When I first heard about the Three Peaks Challenge from a bloke I was talking to in a different meetup in London, he told me how difficult it was going to be, the one coming up for him. And when I went back home to do some research on this challenge, I was shocked at how much it was. £440. That's about 900 Australian dollars for those listening back home in Sydney. That's a lot of money. But I knew this is something that I enjoy doing. It's going to be difficult. I'm going to meet people and there's going to be some character building. I'm going to be someone different. I'm going to learn something about myself afterwards. So it's worth it. And number 3, book it and go along by yourself. I love doing things with others. And I asked a few of my mates who love being outdoors, who love physical activity, biking, running, going to the gym, but they were umming and ahhing about it. And in the end, I came to realize that this is it. This is an opportunity for me to go and do something by myself, challenging, and see what happens. This is my sign to go out and find enjoyment in what I love doing within the context of a challenging activity. And I became another person on the other side. Let me tell you how that happened. It all started at 6 a.m. on a Saturday. We hiked Ben Nevis, the tallest mountain in Scotland, which took around 5 hours. Came back down, had a bite to eat, got back on the bus. Everyone had their shoes off. So you can imagine the smell in that minibus as we all, for 4 hours, driving to the next mountain, Scafell Pike in England. Probably the hardest hike I've done to date. We got there a little bit late because we were behind schedule, and we started hiking at 8 p.m. Now, it doesn't get dark until 10 p.m. in the UK during summer. So we still had some light. We reached the summit around 2 hours later, but it was dark and it was windy and it was truly quite barren up there. There were only rocks that had been ground into dust by all the wind erosion. And I think with every step, I had to sneeze because there was so much dust around and so much rock, ground rock. And the wind was blowing 50-mile-an-hour gales. It was pretty tough. And the ground was very, very uneven. So you had to be concentrating hard on every single step so that you didn't roll your ankle. And having already done a 5-hour hike. But on the way down, I got talking to a fellow hiker who was in our group called Ryan. And we got chatting about our dreams and hopes for the future. Turns out we both wanted to leave our 9-to-5 jobs and follow health and well-being businesses. He wants to set up a somatic breathwork type program for people to focus on improving their mental state. And I told him about my podcast that I'd started. And I can tell you that hike down became a lot easier. We forgot about time. We forgot about what we were doing. And we shared our current hardship in front of us of hiking when you're tired. And we were able to share ideas and support each other and wish each other luck for our endeavors. The one thing that I learn't about myself was my love of hiking with other people. I've done a few hikes here and there, but this challenge really cemented my love for being in nature with like-minded people and challenging ourselves all at the same time. That's where I come alive. That's where life really becomes magical in my experience. And that love of being out there in nature with other people and physically pushing myself ultimately allowed me to achieve my goal of completing the 3 Peaks Challenge in 23 hours and 21 minutes, which is when I summited Mount Snowdon, final peak in Wales. And I couldn't have been happier. I felt like I was on top of the world. I wasn't quite there literally, like Mount Everest, but at the top of that peak, that beautiful view in Wales that you get at the top of Mount Snowdon is something that I will never forget. And the friendships that I made with Ryan and another hiker, Chris, truly made the experience enjoyable, despite being absolutely exhausted and having my body pushed to the limit. So to wrap up, I want to challenge you to put yourself out there this week. Take the more challenging path and upgrade yourself to the next superior version of you. You've got this. I hope that something in this episode resonated with you today. And if you liked what you heard, or you know someone in your circle who could really benefit or be motivated by tackling the challenge, please give this episode a share by clicking the share button and send it via a direct message on Instagram or on your story to your close friends. And click the follow button if you want to hear more episodes like this. This will really help me share the love and wisdom to the world about taking control of our health and well-being collectively. I also really want to hear what you have to say about this episode and what you want to hear more of in the future. So please leave a comment on this episode. Whatever you've got to say, I want to hear it. So thank you so much for sharing. Thanks for listening. And that's it for now. Have a great, challenging week and stay wholesome. See you soon.